Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be talking about a Manchester band that was around during those crazy Madchester years of the 90s and really made their mark overseas, but didn't really have that much success here in the U.S. Now, INSPIRAL Carpets is the band. Now, their sound is a mixture of garage and psych, heavy organ sounds from Clint Boone. So there's, this sort of pulsating R&B rhythm with some psych guitar and keyboards, all dressed up in garage clothes. It's really, really fascinating. Now, the earliest recordings that are now available on CD was actually a cassette recording, and it is called Dung 4. And this was back, I believe, this is back when Stephen Holt was the vocalist. He was the vocalist just during the early period, and then he came back later, but I'll explain that. The band's most famous lineup, Graham Lambert on guitar, the late Craig Gill on drums, Clint Boone keyboards, Martin Walsh on bass, and at this time, Stephen Holt on vocals. And it's a great collection, early raw, fantastic. That was actually released on cassette, I believe, in '89. It was finally released on CD 5 or 6 years ago, something like that. But they released a couple of EPs, and then in America, they released it as the Cool as Fuck EP, because that was like their motto, cool as fuck. And this still had Stephen Holt on vocals, and this was tracks from a couple early singles. And then Stephen Holt left. He was replaced by a vocalist named Tom Hingley. The album came out on mute in the UK, and it also came out, I believe, quite a bit later, a few months or the following year, on Elektra. And most of the songs are the same, but they're mixed around, different versions. The American has 3 tracks over the UK version, but it's a great introduction. The album is called Life, came out in 1990. Really, really fascinating, wonderful. They were doing stuff that was different from the Stone Roses and Happy Mondays and stuff, and that's what I loved about them. They weren't following that trend. I think they were just doing great music, and they just got caught up in the scene. They really rocked, and just great songwriters, great energy. And then in 1991, they put out The Beast Inside. Now, this was kind of a different beast altogether, no pun intended. This was a little more serious, a little darker, more depth to the recording. I think it's still great, but it didn't have that energy of the first album. And I think that threw people because they were sort of advancing. They were maturing quicker than their audience wanted them to. But that is a great record. One of my favorite Carpet songs is Please Be Cruel off of that album. 1992, they returned with Revenge of the Goldfish, another great collection of songs, restoring that frenetic energy that they had on the first album, but still maintaining that maturity, that movement forward musically. A great collection of songs. Another one of my favorites is on this album called Dragging Me Down. That was a single as well. 1993, out comes the album Devil Hopping. Again, this is them moving forward, but still having that energy, still sounding very much like INSPIRAL Carpets. Still sounded garagey, but a little cleaner. They still had the great keyboards from Clint Boone and the slashing guitar, and yeah, it was just a fantastic record. And in fact, for all intents and purposes, it seemed like they were just going to continue and go on and on for forever, because each album was just so jam-packed with greatness. But unfortunately, that was it. The band called it quits. Adios, amigos. Now, I think that's just because people were tired of the scene. They didn't realize that INSPIRAL Carpets were not like those other bands. They weren't like Primal Scream. These guys were out playing just great melodic rock, tons of influences in there. I think when the scene died, people lost interest in them. But over the years, interest started growing again. People started realizing, hey, they really are a great band. So in 2003, out comes this Cool As compilation. CD 1 is called Cool As, which is a best of. CD 2 is called Rare As, which is obviously rarities. And the third disc is a DVD called Spool As. So it has videos and live performances and stuff. That's a great collection. There's also a couple different other INSPIRAL Carpets collections. And the unfortunate thing is I just have the albums. There's tons of CD singles that have non-album B-sides. Eventually I'll try to gather all that stuff together, but things like this do help because it does compile some of the B-sides on it. Now, around this time, the band did reunite and they started touring and playing out, but they didn't record any new material, and I think that the tours were just sporadic. But finally, Tom Hingley left the band in 2011, and guess who came back? Their original vocalist, Stephen Holt. And they put out a brand new self-titled album that is every bit as great as the stuff they've done. This does sound like it is a little more raw, not the bigger production of Revenge of the Goldfish or Devil Hopping, but still just as melodic and great. And Stephen Holt and Tom Hingley have distinctively different voices, but they can both occupy each other's universe, if you know what I mean. One of them can handle the other's songs and vice versa, and it still ends up sounding great. And then that was it. Unfortunately, the passing of drummer Craig Gill in November of 2016 probably brought an end to the band. I can't be sure about that, but they still have this great legacy of music behind them that you should really check out if you haven't listened to them. Like I said, it's garage, it's psych, it's pure pop, it's bubblegum, there's northern soul in there, and it's just really a great band that it's still not too late to fall in love with. So when you're out there, pick up as much Inspiral Carpets material as you can, because it's really going to be worth your time. That's it for me. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, ring that bell for future notifications, leave a comment below, and until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.